It's behind me. Don't let it find me." That's how the call started. A man's voice, low, ragged, like his throat was raw from running or screaming. He whispered so softly, I had to press my headset tighter, leaning into the sound like it might slip away if I breathed too loud. There was a shuffle, maybe leaves, maybe gravel, and then nothing. A dead line, no name, no address, no follow-up report in the system. By the time I checked the log, it was gone, like it had never existed. My name doesn't matter, just know this: I'm a 911 dispatcher in Oregon, and I've worked this job long enough to know the difference between prank calls, real emergencies, and whatever that was. And if you're listening to me right now, you're already part of this. I wish I could tell you it's just a scary story, the kind of thing you laugh about and forget by morning. But that would be a lie. Some calls never make it into the records. Some aren't supposed to. Most people think dispatchers handle chaos, wrecks, overdoses, break-ins, and sure, we do. That's the job. Stay calm, keep control, send help. But the part no one talks about, the part we're not supposed. Twiz, what happens when the caller doesn't sound human? Or when the background noise doesn't match the location? Or when the voice on the other end already knows your name? That first call wasn't unique. It was just the one I can't shake, because I swear I still hear that whisper sometimes, bleeding through the static of my headset. The system says it never happened, but I remember. I can still picture the way my hands trembled on the keyboard, the hollow silence that pressed in when the line went dead. Maybe I should have let it go. Just another glitch, just another unfounded report in a job that runs on them. But I didn't. And that's where everything started to unravel. The truth is, the phone rings with more than emergencies here. It rings with things you're not supposed to hear. And once you do, it doesn't let you go. But that was just one of many nights. Asterisk, most nights at the center feel the same. The fluorescent lights hum with that low, nagging buzz that drills into your skull after a 12-hour shift. Coffee cups stack up in precarious little towers, each ring-stained reminder of just how endless the hours stretch when you're tethered to a headset. The air always smells faintly like burnt coffee grounds, cheap hand sanitizer, and the old carpet that hasn't been replaced since before I started. Routine, that's what keeps us sane. The rhythm of ringing phones, typing out call notes, radio chatter bouncing between units. Most nights, it's nothing special. A drunk driver weaving down the interstate. Another lost dog sprinting through someone's backyard. A neighbor who swears they saw a prowler but really just wants attention. We rotate calls, sip stale coffee, and trade sarcastic comments in between emergencies. Take Jenna, for example. She sits 2 desks down, swears she can tell a prank call from a real one by the tone of the first 3 words. She's usually right, too. Then there's Marcus, always humming some classic rock tune under his breath, even when the phones are burning hot. He says it calms him, though it drives the rest of us crazy. And Carl, the night supervisor, who keeps a stash of peppermint candies in his desk drawer like they're classified contraband. It feels normal, almost comforting, like we're shielded by routine from the darker edges of the job. But underneath all that chatter and familiarity, there are cracks, things no one jokes about, things no one even mentions. Sometimes a call will pop into the system, timestamped, assigned a number, even with a short transcript, but then vanish before anyone can follow up. Other times we'll hear a line go dead, but instead of being logged as disconnected, it just disappears, leaving no trace. When that happens, everyone gets quiet, too quiet. Fingers hover over keyboards, but no one types. We all know the phrase for it, grey files. That's what they call the calls that don't stick, the ones that get scrubbed. No one knows who coined the term, but is spread through the center like a whispered superstition. Carl pretends they don't exist, says it's just system glitches, nothing more. But he won't look you in the eye when he says it. And if you ask too many questions, you'll get the same answer every time. Don't. Just don't. We're told never to ask about the ones marked grey. Don't follow them, don't dig. Don't even bring them up. So we don't, or at least, we try not to. Because once in a while, one of those calls breaks through anyway. No missing logs. No clean deletion. Just raw, unexplainable terror, sitting there on the other end of the line, daring you to listen. And one night, I did. Asterisk, it was around 2 in the morning, the hour when even the busiest nights slow to a crawl. I'd just taken a noise complaint in music, too loud in an apartment complex, when the next line lit up. I slipped on my professional voice, steady, calm, prepared to walk through whatever came. 911, what's your emergency? At first, all I heard was heavy breathing. Ragged, uneven, like someone trying to stifle sobs. Then, a man's voice, shaking. There's something in my house that wasn't unusual. We get plenty of intruder calls. I pulled up the form, fingers poised to type. Sir, are you safe right now? Can you tell me your address? He whispered it quickly, like he didn't want the walls to hear. I logged it, checked the map. A small residential street, nothing remarkable. Okay, help is on the way. Can you describe who you saw? There was a pause, then a broken laugh that caught in his throat. Not who, what? My fingers hovered. What do you mean? He lowered his voice to a whisper, so faint I barely caught it. It's standing in the hallway. I thought it was a shadow at first, but it has fingers. Too many fingers. They drag on the floor when it moves. The hairs rose on the back of my neck. Still, I force protocol. Stay quiet. Lock the door if you can. Officers are en route. But he kept talking, voice unraveling. It keeps whispering, like it's talking to itself. But the words, his breathing spiked. They're backwards. I don't understand them, but I can feel them, like they're crawling into my head. A low sound bled through the line then, distorted, like a recording played in reverse. My headset hissed with static that didn't belong to the call. I almost tore it off, but I didn't. I couldn't. Sir, I said, forcing calm. I didn't. Feel. Stay with me. Do not engage. Officers are coming. No, he hissed. You don't get it. It knows I called. It's looking at me right now. The line cracked with a sudden thud, like the phone had hit the floor. For a few seconds, all I heard was scuffling, a muffled cry, and then the whispering closer now, right against the microphone, then silence. Hello. Sir, are you there? Can you hear me? My voice was useless, swallowed by the dead air. The line cut, heart pounding. I checked the system to confirm the dispatch. Except, there was nothing. The log I'd opened was gone. The address field I'd typed was blank. No record of the call existed, like my screen had wiped itself clean. But I remember the sound of those dragging fingers. The backwards whispers that made my skull ache. The way my gut told me, with cold certainty, that someone or something had been on that line with us, listening. I sat there, frozen. Headset still pressed against my ear, long after the silence ended. Around me, the center hummed with the Usual noise, Marcus humming off-key, Jenna laughing at something on her screen. Normal life, completely oblivious. And I wondered if I'd imagined it. If maybe the exhaustion was finally breaking me. But no, I know what I heard. And that wasn't the last time. Asterisk, after that night, the job stopped feeling like a routine. Every time the phone lit up, I braced myself, not just for emergencies, but for whatever else might come crawling through the line. And it didn't take long before the strange calls multiplied, stacking up like ghosts I couldn't shake. The first came on a quiet evening in late spring. A man's voice, strained but clear, said he was hiking near Crater Lake. He'd gotten lost, disoriented. Nothing unusual there. I pulled up his GPS coordinates, ready to dispatch a ranger unit, except his location pin-dropped, dead center in the middle of the lake. "Sir, are you on a boat?" I asked, forcing calm into my voice. "No," he said, his breathing uneven. "I'm on the trail. I can see the trees. I can see the rim above me." But he stopped, confusion warping into panic. The water's getting closer." I checked the feed again. Same result. Middle of the lake, where no cell tower should have been able to triangulate. His voice started to distort, breaking like a radio drifting out of range. Its static swallowed the rest. Then the call dropped, coordinates blinking out as if they'd never been there. When I tried to pull up the log, it had already been flagged gray. A week later, the second call. A child's voice, small and trembling. "I can't find my mom." That one hit me harder. I softened my tone, did everything by the book. "Sweetheart, can you tell me your name? Where are you right now?" She sobbed quietly. In the background, I heard movement, but it didn't sound like footsteps. It was heavier, wet somehow, punctuated by guttural noises no child should have been near. My stomach knotted. "I'm cold," she whispered. "It's dark. They're looking for me." "Who's looking for you?" I asked. That's when the background noise shifted. It wasn't static. It wasn't interference. It was growling, deep, layered, like more than one throat making the sound at once. The child whimpered, then screamed. The line cut out. I can still hear that child's voice sometimes, even when I'm off duty. Sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I think I hear her crying on the other end of the line. The third call was the worst. A man, middle-aged by the sound of him. His words came clipped, rushed. "I need to report a death." "Okay, sir. Can you give me the name of the deceased?" There was a pause. Then, "It's me." At first, I thought I misheard. "Sir, are you saying you witnessed?" "No," he interrupted, voice breaking. "I'm dead. I'm calling because I don't know what else to do. I can see myself. I'm on the floor. I don't know how I'm talking to you." A chill bled down my spine. I tried to get details, tried to keep him on the line, but his voice was unraveling, thinning like mist. "Please," he said, faint now, echoing like he was falling away from me. "Don't let it," static, sharp and final, erased the rest. When I checked the log, nothing. No caller ID, no trace. Just me, headset clutched tight, staring at a blank screen. We're trained to keep calm. We're trained to handle overdoses, suicides, break-ins. But how do you log a caller who shouldn't exist? How do you dispatch officers to a child who cries from a place no map can find? How do you comfort a man who swears he's already dead? Don't you just keep answering the phone? That's the job. But one night, the calls stopped being anonymous. One night, it wasn't just anyone on the line. It was someone who knew me. Asterisk, the call came just past midnight, when the center was unusually still. Jenna was out sick, Marcus was humming softer than usual, and Carl had disappeared into his office with a fresh cup of coffee. For once, the building felt hollow, like it was waiting. The phone lit up, and I did what I always do, slid into the script. 911, what's your emergency? The voice on the other end wasn't frantic, wasn't broken like most I deal with. It was calm, measured, almost rehearsed. I just wanted to make sure you were paying attention. Something in my chest tightened. Sir, this line is for emergencies only. If you don't have ICU, the voice interrupted, casual, as if we were old friends. You're wearing the blue hoodie tonight, the one with the frayed cuffs. You chew the strings when you're nervous. You're doing it right. Now, my blood ran cold. Slowly, without meaning to, I looked down at myself. Blue hoodie, frayed cuffs, the string wet between my teeth. How do you know that? My voice cracked, just slightly. The caller chuckled, soft and low. I know. More than that. The mug on your desk chipped rim, right side. You keep it too close to the keyboard. And your apartment. 3rd floor, facing west. You always leave the bathroom light on when you go to bed. You say it's so you don't trip at night, but we both know it's because you're afraid of the dark. I stopped breathing. Protocol told me to keep control, to log details, to ask questions. But this wasn't something you could log. This wasn't an intruder I could send officers to chase. This was personal, invasive in a way that made me feel like the headset had become a noose around my neck. Who are you? I asked. My voice was steadier than I felt. You already know, the caller whispered. We're the voices in the grey files, the ones you're not supposed to follow. And if you keep digging where you don't belong, you'll end up one of us. The line hissed, not with static, but with something wetter, like the sound of breath fogging up glass from the other side. I swallowed hard. What do you want? To warn you. The voice grew sharp, urgent. Stop asking questions. Stop. Remembering, let the grey fade, or you'll never be free of it. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, desperate to capture even a shred of proof. Caller ID, blank. Log field, empty. The system had already erased it, same as before. Why me? I whispered. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, in a voice that wasn't quite the same as before, like multiple people speaking through one mouth, because you're still listening. The line erupted into static so loud I ripped the headset off, heart hammering. When I put it back on, there was nothing. Just the hollow hum of the center, Marcus humming faintly in the background, oblivious. That was the first time I realized the calls weren't random. They weren't accidents, glitches, or pranks. They were pointed, deliberate. And now, they had me in their sights. I should have stopped there. I should have shoved the memory into the dark corners of my mind and gone back to logging noise complaints and drunk drivers. But I didn't, because if someone nor something knew me that well, then maybe there were answers hidden in the grey files. Maybe I could find them. So I did the one thing we're told never to do. I started digging. Asterisk, the grey files gnawed at me. Every time I logged into the system, every time a call blinked into life on my screen, I found myself wondering if this would be another whisper from the void. I tried to tell myself to let it go, but the seed was already planted, and seeds have a way of growing, even in darkness. One night, while Carl was out back having his smoke break, I slipped into the storage room. Nobody likes going in there. It smells like mildew and paper rot, and the shelves bow under the weight of forgotten binders. Old protocols, obsolete maps, training manuals from decades ago. Dust so thick it coats your tongue if you breathe too deeply. I told myself I was just looking for distraction, something to keep my mind busy during the long hours. But when I found the binder, I knew I hadn't stumbled on it by accident. It was shoved behind a stack of emergency procedure manuals, its black cover cracked, pages swollen with moisture. No label on the spine, just a faded white sticker on the front with 3 letters scratched into it. GFI carried it back to my desk like contraband, heart pounding. Inside, the pages were yellowed, margins filled with scrawled notes from people who came before me. The first few sections looked normal, basic dispatcher guidelines, emergency response codes, but then the text shifted. The language grew strange, almost clinical in its detachment. Asterisk, I froze. My eyes traced the words again, just to be sure. They were real, the rules were simple, but reading them sent ice through my veins. Asterisk, never acknowledge the reversed voices. Do not respond. Do not repeat them. Do not attempt to interpret. Asterisk, do not trace grey file calls. The location will not be where it appears to be. Attempts will result in breach. Asterisk, never speak your name on the line. Once given, it cannot be taken back. There were more. Notes about containment of auditory bleed, about audience contamination. Some sections had entire paragraphs blacked out with heavy ink. Others were scribbled over with frantic handwriting. Don't listen too long. Cover your mirrors. Never pick up twice from the same number. Asterisk, my stomach knotted as I read, because I realized I'd already broken one of the rules. I had responded to the backward voices. I had listened to long and worse during the call with the voice that knew me. I'd slipped. I had said my name. I flipped the pages faster, my hands shaking. Buried in the middle was a warning written in red pen, faded but still legible. The calls are not reaching us. We are reaching them. Asterisk, I shut the binder so hard the sound made Marcus glance over at me. I forced a weak smile, muttered something about allergies, and shoved the book under my desk. But my pulse wouldn't settle, because now I knew the rules, and I knew I'd broken them. That binder wasn't training material. It wasn't meant for new hires. It was something else, something we weren't supposed to find. Proof that whatever's on the other end of those grey file calls has been here longer than anyone admits. Proof that other dispatchers before me had heard the same things, had tried to write their warnings into a book nobody was supposed to read. Asterisk, that night, I sat at my desk long after the others had left. Binder open under the dull glow of the fluorescent lights. My eyes kept circling those 3 rules, over and over. Like if I stared long enough, they might change, might soften. Never acknowledge, never trace, never speak your name. I whispered them under my breath, as if memorizing them could undo what I'd already done. Asterisk, but it was too late, because in the nights that followed, every call that came through pushed me closer to breaking the rest of the rules. I should have stopped. I should have listened to the warnings scrawled in red. Instead, I broke all 3, and that's when everything came crashing down. Asterisk, asterisk. The shift started like any other. Too much coffee, too little patience, and the hum of the fluorescent lights drilling into my skull. I remember thinking it would be a long night, but I didn't know how right I was. Looking back now, that was the night everything bled together. The rules, the warnings, the whispers, all of it. That was the night I broke every rule in the manual. The first call came just after 10 p.m. The line clicked open, followed by a faint hiss, like someone breathing through static. Then the voice started, slow, reversed, like a cassette tape unwinding. I should have hung up. Rule 1. Never acknowledge the reversed voices. But I didn't. Something about the rhythm, it was hypnotic. Against every shred of common sense, I whispered, "What do you want?" The line responded instantly. The voice surged, garbled syllables unraveling into my headset. For the first time, I thought I almost understood. Words brushing the edges of my mind like shadows moving behind a curtain. And then, just as suddenly, silence. The silence wasn't empty, though. It pressed against me, heavy and thick, until the hair on my arms stood up. The monitors around the room flickered once, just once, then returned to normal. Nobody else seemed to notice. Marcus was humming again, Jenna typing furiously. Only me, sitting there with my heart pounding like I'd just opened a door that was meant to stay locked. I told myself it was fine. Just a weird call, nothing more. But an hour later, the second mistake came. The line rang again. Another grey file call. The voice this time was clearer. A woman crying, begging for help. She said she was lost, that something was following her, that she could see lights in the trees. I did what I wasn't supposed to do. I pulled up the trace function. Rule 2. Do not trace grey file calls. I told myself it was just to confirm, just to see. But when I hit the key, the screen exploded with data coordinates flickering across the map, blinking so fast they looked like fireflies scattered across the state. Mountains, rivers, forests, all lighting up at once. My computer gave a sharp pop, the smell of burning plastic filling the air. The monitor went black. The others jumped at the sound. Marcus cursed. Jenna called over, "You okay?" "Yeah," I lied, pressing a hand against the monitor's warped frame. My headset was still alive, though the woman's sobbing louder. "Now, please," she cried. "Don't leave me here." Then the line cut, leaving only the faint scent of melted circuits and the uneasy silence of my co-workers, pretending not to notice. By then, my nerves were shot. My hands shook as I typed, as I sipped cold coffee, as I tried to convince myself it was just bad luck. A freak electrical short. Nothing supernatural, nothing personal. But around 3 a.m., the final mistake came. The call was short, brutal in its simplicity. A man's voice, low and deliberate. "What's your name?" I froze. Dispatchers don't give names. We're trained to be anonymous, faceless lifelines. But I was exhausted, my mind ragged from hours of static and shadows. Without thinking, I whispered it. My name. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. The voice chuckled, soft and wet. "Now I know you." The lights in the center flickered hard, buzzing like a swarm of flies. Shadows stretched across the walls, too long, too sharp, bending in directions they shouldn't. I heard whispering, not in the headset, not over the speakers, but all around me. Low voices curling through the air vents, rising from the floor, slithering between the keys of my keyboard. I tore the headset off, but the whispers didn't stop. They swelled, overlapping, backwards words spoken in dozens of voices. Jenna slammed, her hands over her ears. Marcus bolted from his chair, muttering curses, his humming gone. I looked at my dead monitor, and for just a second, I swear I saw my own reflection in the black screen. Except it wasn't me. Its lips were moving, whispering. The words I couldn't understand. That's when I realized they weren't outside anymore. They were here, with me, every phone in the center lit up at once, lines screaming in unison. The room pulsed with red, with green, with impossible numbers flickering on the displays. I tried to shut it out, to ground myself, but my own station came alive again, the headset vibrating against the desk. The number flashing across my screen wasn't blocked, wasn't blank. It was my number, my phone, calling me. The number blinked on the screen, insistent, impossible. My number, my own phone, the one tucked in my bag under the desk, was calling me. For a moment, I just stared, frozen. Answering went against every instinct I had, but letting it ring felt worse, like ignoring it might make whatever waited on the other end crawl closer. So I picked up, 911, what's your emergency? The words came out automatically, the muscle memory of my job. What answered wasn't static, wasn't a stranger. It was me. Don't, the voice rasped, breathless. Don't do this. Don't go any further. I gripped the headset so tight, my knuckles went white. Who is this? I asked, though I already knew. The cadence, the breaks in the voice, it was mine. It's you, the voice whispered. It's me, and I'm begging you stop before it's too late. My stomach dropped. My mind scrambled for logic, for explanation, but there was none. I was listening to myself, not an echo, not a recording, but a living, breathing me from somewhere else. What happens if I don't? I whispered. The voice on the other end trembled. It spreads. That's how it works. The story is the infection. Every time you tell it, every time someone listens, it pulls them closer. It marks them. That's how it got me. That's how it'll get you. I pressed my palm to my forehead, dizzy. Then why call me? Why warn me? Because I thought I could stop it. My other self said, sobbing now. I thought I could control it. But I was wrong. You can't control it. You can only feed it. And once it starts, once you let the words out, there's no way back. A horrible noise bled through the line then, like tearing fabric mixed with a scream, my own scream. The me on the other end wailed high-pitched, raw, breaking apart. They're here, it shrieked. There, the voice fractured into static, then into dozens of overlapping versions of myself, all crying, all begging in different tones. I ripped the headset away, heart pounding in my throat, but even held at arm's length, I could still hear it. My own voice, whispering, pleading, breaking. The sound didn't fade, it burrowed into my skull, into me, and that's when it hit me. The caller had been right. The story itself was the contagion. Every word I spoke, every word you're hearing, right now, threads you deeper into it. That's why I shouldn't be telling you this. You remember that first voice I told you about? The whisper through the line. It's behind me. Don't let it find me. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. The way the line died mid-breath. The way the system erased it like it was never there. Back then, I thought it was just a glitch. Just one night of static that wouldn't stick. But the more I talk, the more I realize something terrifying. Maybe that first call wasn't a stranger at all. Maybe it was me. Because lately, I've been slipping. Time doesn't work right anymore. I'll sit down for a shift, coffee steaming. In my cup, monitors humming, and then suddenly the clock jumps forward 3 hours. My log shows nothing. No calls, no keystrokes, no activity. But my hands feel sore, my throat dry, like I've been talking the entire time. And the worst part? The headset smells faintly of copper, like blood warmed by static. It's not just at work either. My own phone, my personal phone, has started lighting up at night. Unknown numbers. Impossible numbers. Once, the caller ID just showed 911. Another time, it showed my own birthday. Last night, it read simply, "Grey file." I didn't answer. I couldn't. But I know it'll call again. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see faces I don't recognize, half-formed pale, their mouths opening and closing like fish gasping on dry land. And sometimes, if I listen closely enough, I can hear them whispering. Not words, exactly, just breath. But it feels like they're trying to push through, trying to speak through me. I don't know how much longer I can hold them back. That's the thing. Those spatchers are trained to log everything. To record, to preserve, to leave nothing undocumented. So even now, even knowing what it does, I'm compelled to share, to tell you, to give it a record, even if the record is the infection. Because if I stop speaking, if I let the silence win, then maybe it just eats me alive in the dark. At least this way, maybe someone else can see the pattern. Maybe. So, listen. If you've ever heard something like this, calls that vanish, voices that echo backwards, numbers that shouldn't exist, need you to tell me. Leave a comment. Write it down. Don't keep it to yourself. Maybe if we map it together, we'll finally understand what's pulling the strings. Or maybe that's what it wants. I don't know anymore. I've tried everything to stop it. I unplugged my headset, but the static still leaks from the speakers. I powered down the system, but the monitors flickered back to life on their own, bathing the room in that grey-blue glow. I smashed my personal phone against the wall, but when I picked up the pieces, the screen lit up one last time, just long enough to show me a reflection of my own face, distorted, whispering something I couldn't hear. And then, silence. For a while, I thought maybe I'd beaten it. Maybe I'd found a loophole. But the silence never lasts. Not really. Because right now, as I speak to youth, phone is ringing again. It's faint, in the background, but it's steady. Ring after ring after ring. Not from my headset. Not from the center. From here. From this room. And this time, I know it's not for me. It's for you.